Do you ever get exhausted from eating? I'm Johnny Mac. I went for a run this morning. The run went fine. I came back and I got a salad at Chopped. Now, I love chopped salad. This one took me forever and a day to eat, and now I just feel stuffed and I got to record a bunch of these. And there is a lot to get to, all right? Let me put on my game face and summon up my copy reading energy delivery, as it were. Last night were the January 6th hearings on TV. Late Night was worried about it going into it. They were worried it'd be a little boring. Stephen Colbert said, yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to look like Top Gun, but just in case, they're going to have Adam Schiff and Jamie Raskin play hot, shirtless volleyball. That'd be amazing. Trevor, what they need to do to get people in America to watch is you have to spice things up. You know, have a kiss cam going for the witnesses, get Shakira to do a halftime show. Americans like entertainment. Congress wants Americans to pay attention to politics. Those two don't mix, but there's one person who can make political machinations interesting for the masses. There's only one man, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Good idea. Trevor, again, you know who's going to be torn about the coverage of this? Donald Trump, because think about it. On the one hand, he doesn't want anyone to know what he did on January 6th, but on the other hand, you know, he'd love to have his hearings get the highest ratings of all time. You know what? He's going to be out there like, don't watch the hearings, folks. The fake news saying I overthrew the government, which I didn't do, but it was the biggest overthrow of all time, but I didn't do it. Gordon, the show was produced by a former ABC executive. Even more exciting, the halftime show will be performed by Imagine Dragons featuring Congresswoman Liz Cheney. I love that joke. Gordon, again, since it's being produced by a former ABC executive, it's being marketed as Extreme Takeover Capitol Building Edition. Seth Meyers. Fox announced it would not carry live coverage of Congress's primetime hearings over the Capitol attack to focus on more important news like, would it kill Milan to wear a dress? Trevor, yeah, Fox is going to spend all night talking about the real culprit. Why is nobody talking about how Congress has too many doors? If there was only one door in and out, this never would have happened. The crowd would have peacefully dispersed after hanging Mike Pence. Instead, Fox will show their special Tucker Carlson Presents a Racist Cow Meows Confederate Battle Hymns. Hey, Kimmel had a pretty snazzy guest. He had President Biden. Kimmel asked the president about gun control. The president said, you find people who are worried. I believe that if they vote for a rational gun policy, they're going to be primaried and they're going to lose in a hard right Republican primary. Biden went on to talk about how he gets along well with Mitch McConnell, saying he's a guy that when he says something, he means it. Kimmel immediately countered with McConnell's conflicting statements on when it is or isn't chill to confirm a Supreme Court justice. Biden also pushed his insulin price cap. That got some applause. They did not play any games. They did not do karaoke. He did not touch his hair. We'll leave all that for Jimmy Fallon. Tuesday night was a fundraiser for the National Resources Defense Council's Night of Comedy. They were honoring Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who's on the NRDC's Board of Trustees, for her impassioned and committed work in the environmental fight. The Hollywood Reporter said, Julia said in her speech, we get report after report from the world's leading scientists warning us all that it's over if we don't act right this second to deal with the climate crisis, that more and more millions of people are experiencing the climate crisis right now firsthand. Wildfires and hurricanes and droughts threaten not just their livelihoods, but their actual lives. So that's the bad news. The good news is, oh crap, there is no good news. Apparently, the audience for this thing was like Hollywood, bigwigs, and media types. Pete Holmes was the first comedian to take the stage, which was on a rooftop at Newhouse. Pete joked, there were a lot of movers and shakers out here to watch me bomb for 7 minutes outdoors on top of a WeWork. Throughout his set, he remarked on the audience's blank faces. He eventually pointed David Zaslav. Now, I love that the Hollywood Reporter just said David Zaslav. Like, we all know who that is. I had to Google it. He is the chief executive officer and president of Warner Brothers Discovery. Okay, now we know who that is. Back to the Pete Holmes joke, now that we've reset the table. Buzzkill, Johnny Mac. Hey, you didn't know who David Zaslav was. Okay, so Pete Holmes is there. He zones in on Zaslav and says, there's one face I can't not look at, and it's yours, sir. He probably owns Viacom. Can you, how do I clean this up? Do something sexually to my face right now. I'm not even trying to clean that up that much. Nicole Byer and Tig Notaro also told jokes. Chelsea Handler sent in a video, and she really waxed Julia Louis-Dreyfus's car, to borrow a phrase from her former coworker. I like that, wax someone's car. She just said, oh, Julia, many think solving the climate crisis is impossible, which is why it's appropriate that we're honoring Julia tonight, because time and time again, she continues to achieve the impossible, an actress that has headlined not one but 3 hilarious and perfectly crafted shows, who gets better, bolder, braver, and more beloved as the years go by. I love you. All right, time out there. What's the third one? What am I forgetting? So it's Veep and Seinfeld, and what's the other one? Are they saying The New Adventures of Old Christine? Are we putting that in that category? IMDb, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Let's see what I'm forgetting. Let's do the whole IMDb. Why not? Troll in 1986. I don't think it's that. Hannah and Her Sisters. Soul Man. The Art of Being Nick. She played Rachel in that 1986 TV movie. She was Susan Raindrop White, Esquire, in a 1988 episode of Family Ties. I don't think we mean that. She played Ellen Swift on a TV series called Day by Day in 1988. No, I don't remember that. Christmas Vacation, Dinosaurs, Jack the Bear, North, The Single Guy, London Suite, Hey Arnold, Father's Day, Dr. Katz, Deconstructing Harry. Then she was on something called Seinfeld. All right, that's one. She did voice work in A Bug's Life, a voice in Animal Farm, a voice on Blue's Clues. Watching Ellie was a TV show that had 17 episodes. I don't think we mean that, Chelsea Handler. Fairly Odd Parents, Arrested Development. She appears in 8 episodes of Curb. I don't think we mean that. The New Adventures of Old Christine, 88 episodes. Is that what we mean? 30 Rock. She's in an episode of Inside Amy Schumer, Veep. I guess we're giving a lot of credit to The New Adventures of Old Christine. I really digress here. I didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but Chelsea Handler confused me. Because Chelsea Handler said she's headlined not 1 but 3 hilarious and perfectly crafted shows. Okay, I guess we mean that one. Whatever. I blame the salad. Now this episode's going to be 20 minutes long because I went off on a tangent. Who gets bolder, braver, and more beloved as the years go by? I love you. And then Chelsea Handler added, and just, this isn't funny. This is not a good joke. I still have hope that we could turn this climate disaster around. The world has already survived so many existential threats, plagues, droughts, meteors, Republicans. Not a good joke, not a good joke. Leslie Jones got up next and said, "This is a comedian's hell. This is where comedians go to die," and said she was going to curse out her agents for booking the gig. "I'm destroying this whole first row. This is like a delight of effing hors d'oeuvres for me. You think they're actually going to save the earth? These effers are going to the moon." Now that's funny. Nick Kroll finished out the show, joking that Leslie Jones stole all his material, including insulting the most powerful people in Hollywood. Little did you guys know you'd give $1.8 million just to be assaulted by people who are dying to work for you. The event did raise nearly $2 million for the NRDC. Sounds like it was a fun night. Adam Sandler was on with Jimmy Fallon during the week, and he told this story that, it sounds like Adam just crafted some stories and then went on late night. I get how it all works, but I'm not buying this one. Adam Sandler said he was in Spain and he came upon a nude beach. How convenient for the story. So he did as the Spaniards do, or at least the ones at the naked Mediterranean beaches, and he stripped off his shorts. But he instantly thought he shouldn't do this. Okay, before we get into the joke of this, do you really think Adam Sandler walked around naked? First of all, Adam Sandler's kind of recognizable. Does Adam Sandler really want somebody taking naked pictures of him? I'm pretty sure that would make the interwebs, and I would definitely talk about it on this podcast. Now, maybe Adam Sandler is really proud of how he looks without his shorts. Maybe he's not. Don't know. But you really think he's going to walk around with no shorts? Well, I guess he's walking around with no shorts. He must be proud. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. So he told Fallon, he immediately thought I shouldn't do this. Someone's going to take my picture and ruin my life. And then, as the story goes, the salty water kept his bits in view, even when he tried pushing down, and they caught the attention of seagulls. Then he described a conversation in which the seagulls debated whether it was a worm or a McDonald's French fry. Sandler said, "I was a guest in their country. I gave it to him. I said, yeah, have a good time." That's the copy I have in front of me. Now, what did he give the seagull? I don't know. Take a break. All right, so much going on. Hey, shout out to Kenny, who listens all the time, and I eventually have to go to a Starbucks and take Kenny up on his buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews offer. I've been insanely busy. He's on a road trip and told me he was going to binge my casual travel podcast, which is called Travel is Back. Thank you, Kenny, for checking that out. This week's episode of Travel is Back, I did Toledo, Ohio. Now, I've never been to Toledo, but recently I drove to Chicago and back, and when I was at a rest stop, they have these travel guides, these little magazines. I saw a whole rack of them. I'm like, oh, let me learn about some new places. So I did a Toledo episode, having never been to Toledo, and it sounds pretty cool. So that's this week's episode. Next week is Youngstown. I really liked how the Vegas episodes came out about a month ago, and soon I'm going to Los Angeles, and I'm going to record a whole bunch of episodes. I'm a little frustrated. I have canceled 2 international trips for family reasons. So I'm losing 3 different countries that I was hoping to bring you on Travel is Back. One of those countries, actually, it's not a country, it's Antarctica. But I had to push that trip back. That's a real thing. We'll talk about that some other day. And I mentioned yesterday I was doing Fight Camp. And their copy said, "We promise you'll be sore." Their copy did not lie. I am sore. JoinFightCamp.com. Promo code DCN. Check it out. It's really good. I was at trivia. We finished 4th place. It was a mess. Like everybody I knew came to this thing. Glenn was there, of course. I was trying to buy Glenn a beer. The bill got all mixed up. I feel like we cheated the brewery out at like $30. I'm going to pop into the brewery later and try and settle up with them. But we had a good time with the trivia guys. It was a break from volleyball season, so we got to play trivia. But 4th place, just couldn't pull it off. A lot of teams. On the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Facebook group, Daniel wrote in and said, "Dude, you were right. The George Carlin documentary was fan-freaking-tastic. I love Carlin, but this was way better than I expected. Very well put together, and the talking heads didn't overshadow the doc like I was afraid it would. I loved watching and experiencing Carlin's journey from the very beginning and learning a lot about him I never knew. Can't recommend this enough. Amen, Daniel." So I started to reply back on Facebook, and then I said, let me just tell the story on the air. So a couple things about that special. Daniel mentions that the talking heads didn't overshadow the doc, and I think that's one of the really, really important decisions that they made. You know, it's so easy to make one of these things, and you have, I don't know, Lady Gaga and Pete Davidson. You know, it's so easy to make one of these things, and you have Lady Gaga and, I don't know, Pete Davidson talking about George Carlin. It's like, I don't want to hear from Pete Davidson about George Carlin. I want to hear George Carlin talk about George Carlin, and I think that's what they really nailed. So I started to talk about being a production snob. My career is radio. I've been in audio for 30 years now. And one thing about production is if you make good decisions, the audience doesn't really notice it. They'll notice bad decisions, or maybe they don't notice it at all, but they made really good musical choices in that Carlin doc. And it reminded me, going back when we started Carlin's Corner, which was a radio station on Sirius XM, I worked with Kelly Carlin on that, and Jerry Hamza. Jerry is George's manager, who also appears in the Carlin documentary. So we all worked on Carlin's Corner together, and one of the things we did was we made 4 one-hour specials featuring 4 decades of George's work, so roughly the 60s, 70s, 80s, and the later stuff. And I had told my production director, when we do the 70s stuff, I want it to sound 70s, but not obvious 70s. So not disco or not like a really obvious Rolling Stone song. And he picked a deep-ish cut from Stevie Wonder that just nailed it. It sounded 70s, but wasn't obvious 70s. So the way I'll teach this to people when younger producers that work with me is, for those of you a certain age, are you familiar with the Rolling Stones? You've heard of them. They have the song Start Me Up. So if you want to capture 1981 or so, you can play Start Me Up. But the move, if you're hip to the Stones, is don't play Start Me Up because everybody else plays Start Me Up. You can play from that same album, Little T&A. It sounds like the same period. It sounds 1981-ish. It sounds like the Stones, but it's not like super obvious. And those are the little tricks in production you do there. I've shared this before as well. I was thinking about working with Jerry Hamza, George Carlin's manager, and Jerry explaining to me how Carlin would do his sets. Carlin would open with a bunch of quick jokes along the lines, you ever notice this setup here has a punchline? And he would do a whole bunch of those and then slow down and go to a long arc. And Jerry explained, you need to, you wake the audience up and then you let the audience breathe. And then it's like a roller coaster. So quick, long arc, quick, good night. And I was thinking about that today. Dave Chappelle kind of does the opposite. Dave does these long arcs, and then he'll drop a dick joke in the middle of a long arc and then get back to being somewhat serious and making his points. Very interesting. And then I think about somebody like Stephen Wright, who I saw one time, and I love Stephen Wright, but I love Stephen Wright for like 10 minutes. After an hour and a half of Stephen Wright's low-key delivery and just one-liner after one-liner, my brain hurt. It was too much. On Netflix today, a tribute to Bob Saget, a celebration of Bob's life and comedy with his friends and family. Among those on the special, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Michael Keaton, Tim Allen, Jeff Ross, Paul Rodriguez, John Lovitz, Seth Green, and Jackson Brown. Now, I have said that I find it odd that they did this tribute to Saget and happened to film it in enough quality that Netflix is turning it into a special. And then I wondered about the releases. Well, I'll talk about the releases in a second. The LA Times spoke to comedian Mike Young, who toured with Saget and opened for Saget for 12 years. Mike Young said, when's the last time you saw a tribute going on like this? Bob was a special dude. Everyone says that when someone passes, but Bob was the greatest. John Mayer said it best at the tribute. I can't believe somebody that was so here is gone. To me, that meant Bob was just so damn present. Was he neurotic sometimes? Of course. Did he try to get me to tell him what I wanted for dinner 2 weeks ahead of going to West Palm? It was beyond, but he did all that because he wanted to take care of people. The vibe in the Comedy Store was all love for Bob. We just had the funeral and then had a small tribute privately, so the mood was like, let's give one more major goodbye. In one fell swoop, the world lost so much comedy, so much joy. The irony is a lot of comics are negative and pick apart the angry. But that's not what Bob was. It's not what Gilbert, Louis, or Norm were. It's just a tragedy any way you cut it. They weren't negative dudes that ran about what they hate. Love was Bob's thing. He was going through this thing this last couple of years where he's like, I'm not doing negative anymore. I'm only doing positive stuff. That was his whole theme. Bob was working on putting together his special, and he was so excited about it. He was starting to crack open so much new material for himself, and all he was thinking about was his special. That's a real crazy part of this whole thing, how excited he was about stand-up comedy again. That article's in the LA Times if you want to read it. Now, Mike Young says, I just heard about the Netflix tribute a month ago when Mike Binder called me to say, Netflix is picking this up. Please sign the release. Okay, that answers my question. They're chasing the releases after the fact. Having done that, I can assure you, when you get releases, you want to have the release signed before you hit record. When a special's in the can and then you have to chase the releases around, oh, what a nightmare. Somewhere, hopefully, is a tape of a Chicago-based blues duo. Recorded a special with them, and we never got the waivers done, and it never aired. So sad. Also on Netflix this weekend, and why didn't you mention this tomorrow, Johnny Mac? Because Johnny Mac taped Saturday on Tuesday and forgot to put this on the calendar. So tomorrow on Netflix, Amy Schumer's Parental Advisory, a showcase featuring stand-ups curated by Schumer. Some of those stand-ups are Ron Funches, Jay McBride, who's fantastic, Christina P., Rachel Feinstein, Chris DiStefano, and Lil Rel Howery. That's a nice list. I still hate that Amy called it Amy Schumer's Parental Advisory. I think that's hack. New comedy music album out today. John Daly, you know him from The Kroll Show, Curb, and Bob's Burgers. Well, I don't know if I know him from Bob's Burgers because there is no Bob's Burgers. Real quick, a couple questions for you. Have you ever seen it? No. You ever met anyone who's seen it? No. Did anybody see the movie? No. You ever meet anyone who's seen the movie? No. But John Daly claims to be in Bob's Burgers. That's neither here nor there. His new comedy music album is called Ding Dong Delicious. Paste Magazine says Ding Dong Delicious is highly amusing and absolutely stupid. The record compiles many of Daly's songs released over the past couple years. They admire his ability to make something stupid or mundane funny again. He'll take an idea that's been long exhausted and breathe new life into it. We're decades past the idea of us being obsessed with our devices. We've come to accept that so many part of our lives have been taken over by being on our phones or doom scrolling on Twitter. On Addicted to Computers, John Daly points out the obvious in a nasal drone, all the while sounding like a watered-down version of Kraftwerk and Devo. The track that's worth the price of admission is The Snowman. That's John Daly's meta song about the poorly conceived psychological thriller starring Michael Fassbender as Detective Harry Hole. Yeah, that's a real movie from 2017, and Harry Hole is the character's name. It's a story that was asking to be roasted, and Daly does it in a way that only he can by singing as the title killer in a Dracula voice in a Monster Mash style song, delivering a Wikipedia-level rundown of the plot and using the killer's lame calling card of Mr. Police, I gave you all the clues. And that's the chorus. Makes sense. Daly takes a movie that sounds like a comedy bit and still manages to point out how absurd it truly is. And that is your comedy news for today. This weekend, tomorrow is a normal episode. Now, Sunday, it is a normal episode. It's not blatant weekend filler. What I decided to do on Sunday is I have wanted to talk about Just for Laughs Montreal. And I was looking for an opportunity to do such. And I'm like, I'll do that for Sunday. And that allowed me to tape Sunday earlier in the week because I have a soccer tournament all weekend. So that's what I'll be doing. You can follow this show for free on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your shows. You can buy me a coffee.com/Daily Comedy News. There are $5 in the tip jar. You know that deal. And you can become a premium subscriber on Apple Podcasts. Get the episodes ad-free and early release. Like by the time you're listening to this, I already published Saturday and Sunday for the premium crowd. Yeah, they've got Daily Comedy News Plus. Look at that. See you tomorrow.